Who are these white nationalist groups? How do they connect to each other? And what do they believe? The information about these groups that I'm about to share was gleaned from a lot of different sources, some of which are available for streaming. Hot links to the articles are available in a post that I have uploaded to Medium. It's called Swastikas in the Bathroom. The first thing you need to know is that different groups and people fit into different categories. The horizontal axis you see here indicates how overtly racist the language is. Some groups use very explicit language about their white supremacy, racism, and plans for the future, while others hide behind covert language. The vertical axis illustrates how the groups operate relative to legal versus violent means. Some promote violence, while others work within legal or political boundaries. They aren't all the same. They don't believe all the same things. And Vegas Tenold, the author of the book, Everything You Love Will Burn, offers us a couple of terms that I found helpful. The boots are the violent extremist groups. The KKK and the National Socialist Movement are two of the older groups. They're still around. The Hammerskins, Atomwaffen Division, they are hyper-violent, extreme neo-Nazis. RAM is the Rise Above movement. It's based in Southern California. It's like a racist fight club. Most recently, we've seen the formation of the Base. This social networking platform is attempting to take online Nazism and turn it into on-the-ground relationships that engage in paramilitary training as they prepare for armed insurrection. You might have seen these folks in the news recently, as a few of their members were arrested by the FBI while on their way to Virginia to engage with people during the gun rights rally in Arlington on MLK Day. The important thing to know is that even though these long-established and explicitly racist boots organizations are now largely avoiding traditional hate symbols, they are publicizing their goals as preserving and protecting white culture, uplifting traditional masculinity, and living out some type of masculine warrior ideal. Some of them promote themselves as patriotic nationalists, trying to clean up our streets. Notice the graffiti from RAM members. This was found in Orange County, and it says, "Kill your local drug dealer." They're trying to position themselves as fighting for clean living, upright, moral Western culture. Common across many of the Boots organizations, and this was just a small sampling, is their decades-long link to paramilitarism. Members of these groups are the ones who perpetuate the mass casualty shootings. Part of their strategy is to keep the public believing that these are isolated cases, instances of madmen, when really the groups preach cell-style organizing through online chat forums. The Oklahoma City bombing was an example of this type of organizing. Sadly, for about a decade and up until recently, law enforcement was not encouraged to focus in this area, and it's been woefully under-resourced to fight this. So what we're dealing with now is a situation where, according to the Anti-Defamation League, in the last decade, members of far-right or white supremacist groups committed over 70% of the extremist-related fatalities in the United States. Thankfully, law enforcement's approach is changing. Just this spring, FBI Director Christopher Wray identified racially motivated extremist violence as a national threat priority for this fiscal year, 2020. That's important. The fact that we haven't experienced a deadly mass attack recently isn't because these folks have stopped trying. Recent changes at the FBI have led to a number of arrests of individuals in the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, and they were plotting violent attacks. So here is what you need to know about the logic of these groups. In general, And I apologize in advance for having to say all of this because it really can be quite upsetting. Overall, white nationalists falsely believe that Jews are using multiculturalism and a liberal agenda to increase immigration and miscegenation in order to lower the white birth rate. They claim this will lead to white genocide. So white nationalists believe that Jewish people are their primary enemy, and Black and LGBTQ folks aren't far behind. They consider immigrants and refugees as freeloaders, claiming that they are pushing out deserving white Americans. Because they believe white people and white culture are under attack, they claim they need to fight for their preservation. Further, they believe that both Democrats and the GOP are a problem because they perceive both political parties as supporting globalism as a part of a new world order that they believe is being run by Jewish people. To support their recruitment, many of them claim that they are not racist, saying they simply believe everyone would be better off if they were living amongst their own. Their stated goal is to create a white ethno-state within the boundaries of the United States. Now, while the biggest threat that they pose is real violence, what extends the danger is that their recruitment has gone underground and it has gone online and it has therefore expanded. They prey upon white young men's insecurities and they sell themselves as offering a chance to be part of something big, to be heroic, to save their white culture and their families. So now we're going to shift to the second category. These are the suits. These are the folks who make pseudo-academic intellectual arguments about racial difference. Two individuals who exemplify this group are Richard Spencer and Jared Taylor. They write and post videos that use innocuous sounding terms and call themselves racialists or race realists or identitarians. They've co-opted the term race conscious, which to them means being conscious of racial differences. Scratch the surface, they're white supremacists. In terms of active groups in this category, Patriot Front appears to be the most active at this time. This is the group that's been targeting a lot of the college campuses. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, Patriot Front is a white nationalist hate group that broke off from Vanguard America in the aftermath of the deadly Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, 2017. It focuses on theatrical rhetoric and activism that can easily be distributed as propaganda for chapters across the country. Identity Europa, one of the fastest growing groups in 2017 and 18, has now rebranded to become the American Identity Movement. This is a conscious effort to align themselves with the anti-immigrant tenor of today's politics. It allows them to hide their real intentions, confusing people by trying to convince them that white nationalism is just nationalism and suggesting that this is patriotism. They claim that their focus is on preserving white identity and white American culture, and their new flyers were just found at the UC Davis campus this fall. These types of groups have also been infiltrating what might be considered less extreme but still far-right conservative campus groups like Turning Point USA. One of their tactics is to gain leadership positions within these groups and make white nationalist positions topics of debate within the mainstream. And they've had a lot of success in the last few years. Ultimately, these groups have the same ideology as the Boots. Their recruitment focuses on claims that white people's rights are being undermined, like their right to own publications and advocacy groups, that white people are stigmatized if they express self-pride. Ultimately, they love the social divisions that we are experiencing today because they believe it will lead us toward a race war, also called the Boogaloo, or the Big Luau, or the Big Igloo. Pay close attention to the protesters that are fighting against the stay-at-home orders that we're currently experiencing. Reports indicate that when you see Hawaiian shirts underneath gun-toting, camo-wearing protesters, this is an indication of a nod to the big luau. This race war that they hope to help spark is supposed to allow white nationalists to realize their goal of creating an ethnic state within the boundary of the United States. To help lay the groundwork in terms of messaging to kids online, they offer revisionist histories of both slavery and the Holocaust, arguing that both the Immigration and Civil Rights Acts of 1965 were mistakes. And they fundamentally question the values of equity and diversity. Their goal is to make room for their anti-democratic positions in order to sow even more division between groups. Overall, while the Boots, the violent extremists, are smaller in number and considered fringe and problematic, they're the ones who are killing people. The Suits present a completely different challenge and danger. Their numbers are far larger. Their pseudo-academic intellectual arguments are hard to refute unless you're an expert in these issues, and they sound really good to dissatisfied white folks who are put off by the language and activism promoting diversity and inclusion. Not only that, but the Suits can be a very exciting model for white youth who are dissatisfied with the society that they're growing into. They offer not only a sense of power, belonging, and purpose. In their khakis and their polo shirts, they offer the promise of possible careers. Young recruits can envision themselves working for Breitbart someday or going into local politics to push their agenda. And this quote from Political Research Associates report sums up the danger that we face. Despite their deep philosophical differences in approaches and tactics, all of these groups share a common end goal: the eradication of civil rights and the establishment of a white patriarchal ethno-state. Regardless of their preferred approach, the far right is united by a perception that the status quo is irreparably flawed.